Another major storm in the West, in an unrelenting series of major storms in the West. Meanwhile, here in the East, it is nice and quiet with a slight chill in the air that will give way to rain Thursday night into Friday as the next cold front approaches from the West. We will have all of that. We're actually going to talk about a, a pattern change that's coming because it is going to happen. Can't stay like this forever, folks. The Joe and Joe Weather Show is back. Brought to you by Omni True
Yes.
Value. Yes, brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, Long Island's largest rock salt source. And they will remain Long Island's largest rock salt source because they've got plenty of rock salt and other snow and ice melt products. Why? Because it hasn't snowed yet. So if you need it or want to have it just in case, like I do here in North Georgia where it snowed 3 times already this winter season, you need a new snowblower or any other things that, well, if you get a winter storm and you lose power, that sort of thing, you can head over to Omni, 631 756 1125. Nowhere can you find better prices, and the website is.
Huh? What? Oh, yes. OmniTrueValue.com.
What were you doing?
Snoring.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
There's nothing else. There's nothing else to get excited about
all right,
in terms of weather.
we here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, just being here is excitement in and of itself.
Well, it was nice to be here or be back. Of course, we were off yesterday, but
Yes.
we're back now.
Sorry about that. I had something that came up late in the afternoon that I had to take care of. So, but no, not like you said, not much was going on. So unless we could have spent a lot of time yesterday with what's going on in California with these storms. I mean, it isn't often that you see a 2% tornado risk up and down the West Coast like you did yesterday, and actually that's even there today on the Storm Prediction Center's map. I mean, it's just been. This started. So think today's the 10th. So this started during the middle of. It actually started a little bit before, but the middle of Christmas week, and has just been. It's every other day. They've had one storm after another every other day for the last 16, 17 days. So I'll have to go back and count. They'll probably have had 8 or 9 systems come in there, and they have not been small ones either. Most of them have been powerhouses.
But they're now getting into the raw statistical version of what this all means. On one of the evening newscasts tonight, somebody said that this was going to be the equivalent of 22 trillion gallons of water. Another said that this was going to be the equivalent of adding 15 inches to every reservoir and watershed in California. Methinks that when this is finally all over and said and done, that the word drought will have been thoroughly and completely erased from the Californian vocabulary.
Well, until the next drought.
Until the next drought.
Right.
As I said, it's never anything in between. In California, they're either upset about drought conditions in the summertime, or as we're seeing now, this is like way above and beyond what we would normally expect to see during the winter. But during the wintertime, they get blasted with Pacific storms, which lead to floods, which lead to mudslides. This is going a little bit over the wall. Well, more than over the wall. This is over the wall and then some. But I mean, this is what they needed. I heard, Joe, also that when this is all over, Lake Mead will be back up to capacity. Lake Mead in the springtime was down to like 22% of capacity. Well, guess what? It's going to be close to, if not at full capacity, when this barrage of one after another Pacific storminess is over.
Since we're on the subject, this is hi to everybody on the chat board and everybody that's just joined the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight.
Oh, come on. Oh, please.
You saw.
Please. It. I saw. Cecilia Hernandez, can the Weather Service be held legally liable for damages resulting from forecasting? Why? Why would they be
No, you know
legally
what?
liable?
You know what? You might want to hold the mayor of San Francisco legally liable for not paying attention. This is not some shock. This was well televised. I mean, we've been talking about this since before Christmas. I don't
It's like
understand where in every weather service every weather service forecast that I've seen in the West, from the national offices, from the Weather Prediction Center to the Climate Prediction Center, which warned about it in their long range outlook, and everything I've seen has been spot on. Why would they be liable?
because they need somebody to blame.
But to blame for what?
Who wants to? It's
Well,
like
I mean,
who wants to sue?
no. But the blame for what? First of all, it's you can't sue the Weather Service, so that's not going to happen. But I don't understand what they did wrong. I haven't seen any stories, any kind of allegation, any kind of anything. I haven't seen anything other than that silly stuff from Frisco with the mayor saying that she didn't, she didn't know about it. So I'm not exactly sure what they would be liable for.
Well, Cecilia mentions, she said, I mentioned this only because it was on the news today. Well, of course it was on the news. The news, they have, look, every morning at every television station in the country that has a news department, they sit down and they bat around what they're going to talk about. And out in California, I'm sure they're saying, we're running out of ideas as to what can we pick on about this terrible weather pattern that we're having. And somebody would probably raise their hand and said, why don't we ask if there's any legal liability? Somebody's got to be blamed for this. Maybe they can sue. This is the stupidity that the news directors and executive producers of television stations, and believe it or not, I know, Joe knows, because we worked at any number of these type of television stations, attended any one of they all turn, in a situation like this, if it was Joe sitting in on the meeting, or if I was sitting in on the meeting, somebody would raise their hand, make that offer, and then they'd all turn to either Joe or me and say, well, is that possible, Joe? Can we sue somebody, or can somebody sue somebody because of the blood? Stupidity.
No,
it's ratings.
no,
It's ratings. That's what they come up with.
These were these were talking heads. That we're saying it, or because I just quickly Googled, by the way, I just quickly Googled National Weather Service liable for California storms, and there's nothing here. I mean, there's no story about people complaining. There's no story about anything like.
No, but probably a television station or
some gas
television
bag.
network that some gas bag made this comment and that sounds a good idea. Work on it. Let's have it for 6. That's
okay. All right. No. I just I figured I'd check because these days things that sound weird turn out to be quite true. But anyway, just with everything that we've been seeing here on the show, that we've been talking about it, we've certainly been talking about it a lot here. They've been spot on. So the idea that they somehow didn't let people know is ludicrous. Okay. But more importantly, by the way, Joe, tonight is our poll. Okay.
Yes, I've seen it.
Which of the following best describes hell? Now, 2 of those choices are my versions of hell. Eternity folding clothes. I really, of all the things that you have to do, folding clothes for me is horror. It's just torture. So folding clothes, and the other thing is having to listen to that Cards for Kids, the Cards for Kids, for Kids, that song. No. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not hum the song or sing the song, because then it's in my head for days. Do not do that, okay? But the choices are Eternity in This Pattern, and we'll talk about the Pacific Fire Hose, because it is going to go away. Eternity folding clothes, which, by the way, has now 5% of the vote. Eternity in This Pattern has 37%. Now just took the lead here, Joe. Eternity in 33 Degrees and Rain, 38%, and the Cars for Kids song is doing well, got 20% of the vote. So anyway, I thought I'd lighten it up just a little bit. the one thing I just want to say before we start is you're going to probably start hearing more and more in the coming days from various sources with regards to the pattern going to change, and it is going to change. Okay, but and you heard you know how I feel about these things, and I've said it many times. Be careful what you wish for, because you may get it. And uh, frankly, the pattern we're in is about as bad as you could possibly get. The pattern is going to change, but to what? And that I think is going to be the big question. And it might mean that we will see temperatures eventually back to where they should be for this time of year, maybe even a little bit below average at times. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come with anything. With regards to the white stuff, for those of you who are still waiting for your first, your first measurable snowfalls. So anyway, I just want to make that very clear, because somebody's going to come along and say, "Well, you said the pattern was going to change and we were going to get snow." No, I did not say that we were going to get snow. I said the pattern was going to change. What it changes to will is still and how it all sets up is still up for debate.
And Keith James II, 69 days till spring. That's astronomical spring, by the way. Subtract 20 days off of that for the end of meteorological spring, which means we only have 49 days to go between now and then to try to work something up where it'll get cold and where we'll have a storm to work with in order to produce the white stuff, which so many people have been grumbling there has been a lack of.
Yes.
Especially here in the Northeast.
Exactly. So on that note, I'm going to bring up the West Coast satellite. We've used the West Coast satellite loop more in the last 2 weeks, Joe, than I think we've used in the last 3 or 4 years. But the latest powerhouse came in earlier, and that low pressure area, which if you look at the loop, you can kind of still see what's left of the spin off the coast of Oregon, and it's pretty much getting absorbed by that animal. And that is an absolute animal that you see out to the west in the ocean that is now starting to push the clouds with the next surges of rain into California in the coming days. Look at that. That's really, not only is it impressive, and the satellite yesterday, by the way, was the satellite loops yesterday were impressive because of the fact that there was so much thunderstorm activity that was showing up out in the Pacific Ocean, and you actually could see lightning strikes there out in the middle of that in that comma head on the east side of the comma head. I mean, this is really impressive stuff here.
It is. It is. And it just does not want, but it will eventually come to an end. It will. I don't know exactly when, but it eventually will or has to come to an end. And like I said, when it does come to an end, the drought, for all intents and purposes, out in the West will pretty much be over, or if not over, alleviated significantly.
Yeah, actually, that the pattern a week from tomorrow, you're judging from what I'm seeing on the maps, the pattern starts to break down a week from tomorrow, and then that breakdown. Actually, the seeds of the breakdown will probably start early next week, but you'll really start to see it manifest itself from the middle of next week on, because this has been such a dynamic pattern in the western part of the United States. It obviously cannot go on for 3 months. It has to, at the very least, it has to break down for a couple of weeks to reload. Just as just as we've seen that Arctic dump that came down right before Christmas pretty much was all the cold air that was up in Canada, and it all came down in one swoop. The same here. I mean, the atmosphere can only produce so many storms for a period of time before it just sort of runs out of firepower, and then it has to reload. So it is going to break down. And in the meantime, when we look at the rest of the United States, you see weather systems that are sort of inching along here. We had some clouds go through the Northeast today in the northern Mid-Atlantic states. A little sunnier up in northern New England, nice and sunny from Virginia down into Florida. We've got clouds coming up from Baja California into Texas with some cloud cover and moisture from what was left of one of the West Coast systems. And then the one that came in today, you see the arc of those clouds now sweeping into Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and up into eastern Oregon and eastern Washington and Idaho. And that's going to be our next weather maker here in the east, starting on Thursday. Correct?
Correct. Correct. And the question that people keep asking me over and over and over again, Joe, is just when is it going to turn cold? And I've seen other Facebook pages and other websites that keep talking about the fact that the trend is that we'll see the colder air beginning to, and even tweets from Dr. Judah Cohen alluding to the stretching out of the polar vortex, which bodes well for colder weather to re-enter the picture in the east, maybe in about another 9 or 10 days. I'm not really sure. Looking at the stuff I've been looking at, whether or not that's going to be. I mean, it looks like the GFS I noticed toward, let's say, the 23rd or 25th of January has like minus 20-degree temperature Fahrenheit temperatures for Quebec and for the New York Quebec border. But you go further south and that cold air kind of loses its concentration. I mean, it looks like it'll be turning colder, much colder than it has been since the start of the month by then in the tri-state area, but nothing to compare with
Well,
what
no,
say.
it's not. Yeah, it's not going to be like what we saw before Christmas. We're gonna. I think we're gonna go. I think we're going to get into a situation where temperatures are going to be closer to average, and maybe on some days even a little bit below average, but nothing that stretches the boundary. We're not going to go to anomalies of minus 20 or minus 30 or anything like that. But at least it'll get. I think we're going to get back down to at least seasonal. Uh, you can't be 10 degrees above normal forever
No, you can't. Well,
or more above normal.
it has come down a little bit. Now Central Park, I believe, is only like 12.3 degrees above normal for
Right.
the first third of the month. But we still have 2/3 of January to go, so we'll see how we can bring those numbers
I think I
down.
saw something where it was the second warmest start to January on record
Yeah,
for New York City. But
pretty amazing.
it is pretty very amazing. So let's look at the radar because I saw it's gone. I was trying to save it, but the radar refreshed itself earlier this afternoon. Joe saw a severe thunderstorm warning for San Francisco. You don't see that too often.
No, no, you
But
don't.
yeah, much of the rain has moved inland, and of course in the Sierra Nevadas, where apparently it's been snowing forever there. I really want to see when it's over if somebody could come out up with a number of how much snow actually fell in some of these areas. It's got to be approaching. I think it's got to be approaching 150 inches by now in some areas, maybe even higher. But
Something ridiculous. Yeah.
very impressive. The system we pointed out, the lead system is weak, and you've got some snow aloft or light precip aloft anyway in parts of Nebraska, Kansas, and into Iowa. Not a, one of the things I think snow lovers should take solace in is the fact that it's not just in the Northeast. It's not, there's a lot of areas that haven't seen their first measurable snows, but there's no cold air anywhere to speak of. Even places where you would think it would normally be cold, it's not cold. So it's not as if it's snowing in the Great Lakes, or in the Ohio Valley, or up in in the Mississippi Valley, or even in the Northern Plains. It's warm everywhere. I mean, we just don't have any kind of connection from Canada to bring down cold air at the moment. Severe weather, yep. Marginal risk of severe weather continues in California, a large area of California, including both San Francisco and Los Angeles and San Diego, as well as parts of Nevada, Utah, southwestern Utah, northwestern Arizona. And that comes, by the way, with two areas of 2% tornado risk. So mark this date down, folks. The tornado risk, that's 2 days in a row of tornado risk there. Now, for tomorrow, the Storm Prediction Center has no severe weather risk in the west, which is good. They've been getting 1 day breaks in between storms. And we've got a small area of marginal risk in southern Illinois, western Kentucky, northwest Tennessee, southeastern Missouri. And that also comes with a small 2% tornado risk. And on day 3, move it to the southeast. I'm in slight risk here in northeast Georgia, as well as southeastern Tennessee, much of almost all of Alabama in a slight risk. The marginal risk pushing up into Kentucky. I don't think there's anything in the long range. No, potential too low, potential too low, potential too low, potential too low. Okay, that's good. Uh, that at least is some semblance of normalcy um, with regards to severe weather. And the other thing I want to point out, Joe, for the rainfall forecast in California and up and down the West Coast, it's still several to many inches. Now, this goes to next Tuesday night. 7-day forecast totals for until through next Tuesday night. We may start to see, maybe not so much tomorrow, but probably starting on Thursday, we'll probably start to see those numbers in California begin to go down as we start to come into the window where the the pattern breaks and they don't get that. They stop getting those storms coming in from off the ocean. Meanwhile, in the Northeast, anywhere from a half to 3/4 of an inch over the next 7 days, a little bit more up in northern New England, also in the Ohio Valley, down into the deep south. We're looking at half an inch to maybe an inch in some places, and bone dry in most of Texas and Oklahoma, also bone dry in the Dakotas and most of Montana.
Well, what else can I say? I mean, everything has been concentrating, excuse me, mainly on California. A lot of places to the north and to the east, up toward, for example, uh, the Great Plains, the northern Great Plains. They haven't been seeing necessarily rain. They've been seeing, case in point, Minneapolis, more in the way of snow
Yeah.
because it's been cold enough up there. But it seems like everybody west of the Mississippi are getting more than their fair share of precipitation. We here in the east have seen some, but really not all that much to write home about. Even what has been ballyhooed for Friday, which looks to be more like the first half of Friday night. Uh, maybe picking up about a half to maybe 3/4 of an inch, tapering off into the early part of the day Friday to just some leftover lingering showers, but certainly nothing to compare with the potency of what we went through on Christmas Eve. That storm that dropped like what, 3 inches, 2 inches, 3 inches in part of nothing compared to that. But again, that's like a drop in the bucket compared to what has been going on out west.
Right, and WPC also has a marginal to slight risk of flash flooding. This is tonight into Wednesday morning, up and down the California coast. And then for tomorrow, a slight risk from San Francisco, basically from San Francisco northward. There's a marginal to slight risk of flash flooding there. You know, they were talking about in their discussion, Joe, rainfall rates were at a half to 3/4 of an inch an hour in the valleys and anywhere from an inch to an inch and a half an hour in the mountains. I mean, this is, you know, well, we're not talking about, and we're not talking about a situation here where it rains for an hour or 2 hours. I mean, we're talking about a situation here where it rains, pretty much for a whole day, with a minor break followed by another weather system where it rains pretty much for an entire day. So, very, very robust rainfalls that have been produced by these storm systems. And on the day 2 to day 3 outlook here, which is Thursday into Friday, we've got a marginal to slight risk north of San Francisco in northwestern California and also up in the Pacific Northwest. So the water continues to flow there. And you saw on the 7-day rainfall that it's all just, certainly the flash flood risk is justified.
Yes, it certainly has. It certainly is justified. No question about that.
Hey, I'm going to just go through the watches and warnings. While I'm doing that, can you check to see if CPC on their long range has any kind of risk areas anywhere? I'm just sort of curious if they mentioned anything. And
Well, here in the
when you're ready to go, you have share. You can share. Just let me know.
okay, yeah. Well, I'm ready.
Oh, all right. Well,
So,
you go do that. Let's bring you let's put you on the spec on the screen here, and you go ahead and do that.
okay, what you're talking about is the 8 to 14 day hazards outlook, I guess, right?
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity if they got anything in there.
Well, the only place they have for hazardously cold or excessively cold temperatures, and this is the last place you would think to look, would be in the desert Southwest, encompassing much of Arizona, part of New Mexico, lower sections of Utah, southwestern Colorado, and extreme southern sections of Nevada. There is a slight risk, let's underscore the word slight, for the 21st through the 24th. That's way, way off in the
Yeah.
far, far, far distant future. So nothing that I don't think we need to be concerned about immediately. So that's in terms of temperature. In terms of precipitation, now they do have a broad area of possibly excessive rainfall. Lo and behold, east of the Mississippi, from northern Louisiana, northeast, all the way up to southwestern sections of Pennsylvania, enveloping portions of Ohio, West Virginia, Western Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, northern sections of Alabama, Mississippi, northern Georgia. Hey, you may be in this area too, Joe.
Yeah.
Uh, from the 18th to the 22nd, again, that's pretty well off. I mean, we're only at the 10th of this month. The 18th to the 22nd is for next week, the middle of next week into the following weekend. Not this weekend, but the following weekend. Also, moderate, but what else is new? Moderate activity, precipitation wise, for western Washington, western Oregon, northern sections of California, and then just a slight risk for central and south central California from around the 18th of January, as yet another major system comes in. Look at this, Joe. Slight chance of heavy precip in Alaska. Alaska, southernmost Alaska, down to about Juneau and just to the north of where Vancouver is, I guess. They've got the threat around the 20th to the 24th of heavy precipitation, a slight risk, but still there. And let's see, how about snow? Where is the snow? Everybody is asking. Of course, it's out west for western sections of Montana, western sections of Wyoming, northwest Colorado, northern and eastern sections of Utah, and again, the classic strip, which includes, I suppose, the Cascades down to the Sierra Nevada range. And there's a moderate risk for snow there around the 18th of January. And for this region also around the 18th and 19th of January. Lastly, let's take a look at the threat for high winds. And that would be for, again, areas out in the west, a moderate risk as the next series of Pacific storms comes in for Washington and Oregon and Northern California. And it just seems to go on. And as they continue to penetrate eastward, the rest goes down to slight. And all of this is for around the 18th to the 20th of January. And that, as they say, is
Is
that.
that? We've got some super chat hits tonight, Joe. Birder lady, forever lurking, she says, hitting the tip jar. David Schwartz says the pattern change you want may not be the pattern change you get. Some wise man said that once. Yes, I wonder who that wise man is, David. And Robert Russo hitting the tip jar. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, David. Thank you, Birder lady. And yeah, thank you. So passing that along. And so far on the poll, by the way, about the best describes hell, eternity in 33 degrees and rain now leads eternity in this particular pattern, 41% to 29%. Folding clothes is at 8%. And the cars for kids commercial is a punishment for being sent to hell at 21%, just kind of holding in that 20 to 21% range. So on that particular note, oh, you have the 6 to 10 day forecast, Mr. Rayo.
Look at this. Look at this, Joe. 90 to 100% probability of above normal temperatures. This, according to the folks over at the Climate Prediction Center, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, just covering virtually everywhere east of the Mississippi, including our own area. My
Is
goodness.
this a shocker though? I mean, really, this takes us what, to the 20th?
16th to the 20th, yes.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's not exactly a shock.
and there's
So
below normal out in the southwest. So if you want below normal temperatures, you'll have to go. And this is probably due to more than just basically cloud cover and precipitation. In fact, in case you're wondering, let's check out the above normal precipitation. Oh dear me! So what is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a 60 to 70% probability of above normal precipitation. Why don't we just say the whole
also,
country is above the whole
yeah,
country is above normal, except for small sections of Texas and near or even below normal in South Florida. People who are down in Miami are looking at this and going, ha ha, to
yeah.
everybody else.
I mean, not exactly breaking news here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right. So why don't we look at the snowfall forecast maps and see what WPC has to say with regards to that, because they might have something to say. Let me have to get the map up here. Nope, that's not it. There we go. And there you go. So there you have it. So this is the next 72 hours. Looking at if you want it, you got to go up to Maine, the northern half of Maine. I mean, if you really want it as a sure thing, where the probability of at least two is 80%, you have to at least go halfway up the state. Otherwise, we're talking about minimal amounts, a little 50% area there in northeastern Ohio and northwest PA, a little 50% areas in the upper peninsula of Michigan and on the northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan. And if we put the probability, I'll be generous and just put 4, okay? So if you want 4, go to northern Maine, because there they have at least an 80% probability of at least 4, and even the 50% probability of at least 8 in that, whatever they call that thing in the northwestern corner of Maine. Almost looks like a little horn there. So you have to go inside that little horn. That would be west of Caribou. Otherwise, we're talking not much. And in the west, in the Sierra Nevadas, again, breaking news there. Also in a small area in the Cascades, and some 30 to 40% probabilities of at least 8 in parts of eastern Idaho, westernmost Wyoming, and down into the middle part of Utah. And on the long range, so for Saturday, we're looking at northern Maine, 30 to 50 or higher for at least a few. Sunday, from a 10 to 30% chance from northeastern New York across Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is, I'm sorry, Saturday into Sunday. So the first one is Friday into Saturday. This is Saturday into Sunday. Sunday into Monday. Also in Maine, a 10 to 30% chance. And then on Tuesday, we have a little bit up in northern Michigan. I mean, we could look out west, but, again, no shockers here. The Sierra Nevadas on Friday, Sierra Nevadas on Saturday, Sierra Nevadas on Sunday, with a little Wasatch and western Colorado thrown in, and Sierra Nevadas on Monday. There's got to be somebody in some cabin at the top of some mountain over there that they're probably not going to see until spring.
Yeah.
And there
Hello,
was
honey.
there was a Perry Mason episode where the guy faked his death in a plane crash and wound up breaking his leg, and he got holed up he was rescued by somebody who lived in the cabin up there in the mountains and had
Right.
to stay up there for 3 months before he showed himself publicly. I'm just kind of that jumped into my brain. Shows you where my brain is at. Watches and warnings tonight in the west. We've got a lot of winter storm warnings. That's just for laughs. You know what? Let's have a little fun. Let's look at. I love these graphics that they put up. With the triangle, the yellow triangle with the exclamation point, Joe. Um, the risk level is 1 level below major. Okay. The Sierra Nevadas until 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time Wednesday. Heavy snow expected. Very difficult to impossible travel. Gusty winds could bring down tree branches and lightning. Let's bring up Mount Shasta. See what they had. They've had some really ridiculous forecasts. Mount Shasta, California. Uh, why isn't it loading?
I don't know.
Let me try it again. Mount Shasta. There we go. Where right now it's 36 with an east wind at 5. Snow tonight. Oh, what do they have? They have a winter weather advisory in effect, Joe. Winter weather advisory. Okay. Snow tonight, heavy at times, high near 11. This afternoon, I'm sorry, snow heavy at times, high near 11. Snow accumulation 10 to 14 inches. They have a winter weather advisory for 10 to 14 inches. Tonight, 6 to 10. Tomorrow, 6 to 10. Wednesday night, 8 to 12. South to southwest winds, 80 to 85 with gusts to 115. Good Lord. Who writes these things?
I don't know.
No,
but,
I'm just saying. I mean, imagine that forecast being put up for New York City with a winter weather advisory, no less.
Yeah, not even a winter storm warning. Or remember the good old days? They used to have heavy snow warnings whenever it's 6 inches or more.
Right.
Now you have to settle for winter storm warnings. By the way, Jay Boston emergency responses hitting the super chat jar, and also saying, Joe, did you guys see what the GFS did yesterday with that hurricane backing west? I was laughing.
I wanted to thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. You reminded me, because that was one of the things on my mind yesterday before I had to cancel the show. Did you see that?
I did.
It was not just one, but it was two of them. But I'm going to bring that up in case anybody missed it. I looked at that and I thought that was the most. I considering the time of year, I thought that was one of the most bizarre runs that I have seen the GFS pull. And it has done a number of bizarre things from time to time, but that one, Joe, took the cake. It really did.
Yep.
And no other model had it, I mean, not even remotely close to having it. I think it was the 12Z run yesterday. All right, no, it was the one before that. It had one low spinning in the Azores. Let me see, which one was it? Was it the 6Z or the 18Z? I don't think it was the 18Z. I think it was the 6. Let's see if this was the 6. I'm going to find this because this was a sick run. So this was the 12Z Monday. I think it was this one. Let the map's. Oh, it doesn't even want to load. It's shame. It's living in shame. Well, here it is. Yeah, there it is. So it had. Well, a couple of things that were weird about it too, because the models were doing this yesterday. The European did it yesterday, gave snow to western New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, down into Delaware and Maryland, from trying to bring this front through and then having some kind of secondary develop, which you see it there. The GFS was sort of doing the same thing yesterday, and of course that just 99 times out of 100 in situations like this, it never happens. But take a look.
We're going to have to watch this carefully, because even after that front does move off the coast on Friday, there are some of the models that are saying that a second low is going to form and then come back toward the west and may throw. Now, take a look. There may be a little bit of snow in parts of our viewing area. Maybe not necessarily for New York, but areas to the north and west. It's a consolidation
of what you right. Yes.
And I'm looking at this and saying to myself, what?
Look at. I mean, this was just. I saw this and my eyes just more than rolled. There's two of them. There's one that drops down south of the Azores, and then this front that moves off on Friday. Some low drops southward and forms a gale center near Bermuda. And you've got. The funny thing is if you stare at that long enough, Joe, it's like a Rex. I mean, it looks like doesn't that look like a Rex block?
A Rex block, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if you stare at those two lows long enough, it looks like two angry eyes with a nose in between. It just
Yes.
and a nose that could, by the way, use a Kleenex. But this was, you know, this model. I have to say, I mean, the GFS model is really doing, and the Europeans been doing it too, in a different sort of way, but they've been doing some really squirrely things in recent times, and I suspect they're going to continue to do squirrely things going forward.
I just checked the National Hurricane Center website. There are no tropical cyclones in the Atlantic at this time.
I should hope not.
I should hope not.
Yes. Now, I wrote a piece today on my subscription site on the long range, and this was from Sunday. This is the jet. We're looking at 25,000 feet here. So if you ever want to see the example of a Pacific fire hose jet, there it is. That purple area and the whitish, those are winds between 140 and 180 knots, going straight across from Japan almost to the California coast. And whenever you have something like this, it just, there's no way for cold air to come down into the United States. When I say cold air, I'm talking about really, I'm talking about quality cold air, not stuff that takes you close to seasonal, but at least takes you below average in temperatures. And we're just not seeing that anywhere with this particular fire hose. But and now we can go back. I'll go back to the current one. We'll go to the North Pacific, and we'll go to the current run, and I'll bring up the 250 millibar, and you could see what's going to be happening going forward. So we just roll it back to the beginning. So there's your fire hose jet from Sunday into Monday, just kind of continuing to send systems eastward. But it is starting actually late this week. It starts to change some character somewhat. But the real change comes as we go into next week, where the fire hose just kind of gets broken apart. You no longer have that screaming jet going from Japan all the way to California. It kind of gets stopped there in the middle around the date line. And this is going to allow for changes, I think, to develop in the overall pattern in the eastern part of the United States. You can't have the pattern switching in over North America until that fire hose goes away. And the models are all showing it going away later, starting next week and beyond. It's just going to take some time in terms of the process, but it is going to happen.
And Sal Packy or Patchy says, hey, Joe C. or Joe R., it's been said that the jet stream has been basically a straight line from Asia through the U.S. Well, what have we been talking about for the last?
I mean, you could extend that Pacific jet. I mean, it's not a screaming jet all the way across, but yeah, it does pretty much, because our air has been coming from from Baja to Bangor, the BB flow. And as we look at the 500 millibar level or the 18,000 foot level, so one of these, I'm just backing up to tonight, and the latest Western Storm's energy gets ejected eastward. That's going to swing into the east, make a nice little trough and shortwave. That comes through. We get whatever we get with rain. Then it cuts off, a little cut off there out in the ocean, well east of North Carolina. And while that's happening, another screaming, jet, another wrapped up storm that we showed you on the satellite, and that arm swings into the west over the weekend and into next week. And then there's another one behind in that flow behind that one. And now we're into the middle part of next week, and then there's one into the Pacific Northwest next Wednesday. After that one goes by, that's when you start to see significant changes as all of a sudden, by the time we get to the weekend of the 21st, 22nd, a ridge is popping up in the southwest. And the jet is gone. We got a cutoff forming north of the Hawaiian Islands, and now we suddenly have a little bit of a colder connection. This is January 25th. I've gotten to, and now we have that colder connection back from Canada. So, look, it's going to change. The thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean if it changes to this, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a snowy pattern. This is not a snowy pattern we're seeing. It may be a colder pattern, but it's certainly not, with a northwest flow like that. It's probably not going to be a stormy pattern or a snowy pattern, at least initially. So, it's a grinding process. It always is. It seldom changes on a dime, but it's definitely going to anything for snow lovers or cold weather lovers. Anything is better than what you got now. So we're going to get there. It's just not going to be. It's not going to be anything extreme.
Yes, yes, indeed. I apologize. I'm in uh, while the show has been going on. I
You're
I
doing your
tried talking.
taxes.
No, no, but I tried talking to my mom, and she didn't answer the phone this evening before the show,
Oh,
and so I'm chatting with my sister, and she gave me the explanation. And
okay.
anyway, that's it.
I assume everything is fine.
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes, yeah.
All right, so let's just look at the surface. And so here's our storm system. If you were thinking that there was going to be some kind of the front was going to come through and some second low was going to develop and throw back some precip, maybe some snow Friday night and a Saturday. That ain't happening. Once we get through this system here, and there will be some snow. Maybe Detroit gets, Northwest Ohio gets into some decent snow on the backside, and also up into northern Maine. Once that goes by, it'll turn colder over the weekend, but nothing crazy. I may see some snow down here in northeast Georgia late Thursday night into early Saturday morning with some mountain effect. And you see the GFS and the other models have this sort of strip of blue from southwest PA down the Appalachians through western North Carolina and just coming into northwestern Georgia, where I'm at the base of the Appalachians. Meanwhile, out in the west, as I just roll it back, you can watch the next arm that comes in later tomorrow and tomorrow night and Thursday into the west, and then another arm over the weekend, and get another arm, and we've got a low on the GFS on next Wednesday that goes by, and there's some, this run, Joe, there's some big high comes down from into southeastern Canada, and some western energy gets ejected eastward and tries to go north, but there's that big surface high in Quebec, so it actually develops an area of heavy snow from northeastern Pennsylvania into northern New Jersey, New York City, and southern New England on the 18Z run. I will just tell you that this is going to be gone on the next run, I think. Or if not the next run, certainly the one that follows. So expect the models to do what they usually do, is to salivate your mouths with renegade snowstorms that never wind up happening. But the general look of this says to me that once we get past the 20th or the 21st, we'll still start to see temperatures really trend down to at least back to average for this time of year. Maybe on a day or two we could be a bit below average. And we're starting to see more cold highs coming down from the northwest, which is what you would expect to see if we get rid of that Pacific fire hose jet.
Well, we'll see. But you're right. I have a very low uh, respect for either the 6 or the 18Z intermediate runs, and I agree with you. Come back tonight, later tonight, when the 0Z primary run comes out, and all of that heavy snow that you're seeing right now being forecasted for parts of the Northeast will probably be gone. But and even if it isn't gone, keep in mind that's still 10 days away.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
Cioffi-Rayo rule is what you see on a 10-day prog, when you actually get to that 10th day, it doesn't look anything like what it looked like 10 days ago.
No. You don't want it to show it. You just want it to hint at it.
Yes,
Then you have a chance. Okay.
yes.
But when it already shows it to you 10 days out, it ain't going to happen that way. Brandon Doherty hitting a super chat tip jar tonight. Thank you, Brandon. And also just want to mention too, the chairman, Scott Briller, his mom had a setback. So everybody, if you can keep Scott and Mother Briller in your thoughts, and we wish her a speedy recovery. She's had a rough time the last month plus, up and down, up and down. So we send positive energy her way. And on speaking of Mr. Briller, I think he left me a Briller Jeopardy the other day that I was supposed to use on. I think did I use it already? Did we do it on Sunday?
We did do one on
Oh,
Sunday.
I have another one. Oh, I have another one. Okay, so this one we were
All right.
supposed to do yesterday, I think, and I've got another one. So, everybody on the chat board, get ready. We are still doing what we did last week, which is the average snowfall for these 5 cities. Okay, starting with Rochester, New York.
Now, is this an average snowfall for
For
January?
the month of January, I'm going to put the city on the chat board, and then everybody can put their guesses here. Average snowfall for the month of January.
So what you're saying is the average snowfall in January for Rochester.
Right. For
Yes, yes, Mr. Bunny.
For Rochester, New York. Yes.
Yes.
So, any guesses? The chat board's not moving for me for some reason.
It's not?
No.
Is it moving? Well, it's moving for me. We have a lot of people who've already started. Norm Roberts, 30 inches. Keith James II, 19. Christopher Alley has 6. Magnolia P, 17 inches. Latex Dreams, 10. Chuck Cardillo, 24. Miss Spallright, 15. William Huber, 36. Are any of these close, Joe?
No. No. Way too low.
Way too low.
Way too low.
But 36 inches in Rochester, New York in January.
Oh, who said 36?
William Huber.
Okay, that's actually closer than some of the lower numbers. It's actually he's a little too high.
Charlie Porch, 35. Steve LaPinte, 22. Sammy Presley, 26. Brandon Doherty just jumped out of my.
Right, so since
18.
if we're playing with Prices Right rules, who said 26?
Sammy Presley.
All right, so based on Prices Right rules, Sammy Presley gets it right. 27.4. 27.4. Right. So next we have Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington
For the month of January. I can't. The chat board is not moving for me. Keith Musillo, by the way, hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Keith. Banging the tip jar. So go ahead. Now we got Seattle.
Okay, so it's Seattle. I see you put it up there. Weather Nerds 735 1.8. James Volpe, he says, I said 27. I don't know what that makes a reference to Rochester.
Oh, I said Rochester. Okay, sorry, guy. We must have missed it.
Bobby Livingworth 8. Johnny Quest 2.5. Matt Finley 7. Just for the hell of it, Joe, I'm saying 3 inches.
Okay.
Charlie Porch 7. Steve LaPointe 5. James Volpe 8. Sammy Presley 3. Joe Lepresti 3.5. Garo Vestas, I think you're a little bit off. 18.5. If Seattle picked up 18.5 inches in 1 month, any month, that would be amazing. Norm Roberts 25.
We're talking the average snowfall here, folks, and it's Seattle, Washington.
Yes, in January.
Actually, from what I've heard, okay, everyone's been too high, I think. Because the answer is 1.9. I know somebody gave a 1 something. Somebody said 1.7, I think.
I'm looking. I just want to go back. Magnolia P said 1.5.
Okay, so anybody, if you said under 2, you're the winners tonight. Washington
Weather Nerd 735 said 1.8.
Okay, so that's just missed 1.9. Just missed without going over. Okay, the next one is Washington D.C. Washington D.C.
Okay, well, I'll say for Washington D.C. I'll say 4. Brendan Doherty, he said you should give us something, whatever that means. You guys should give us something. What for getting the correct answer right, or this is a cheap show.
Yeah.
Weather Nerd 735 said 6.0. Johnny Quest 6.9. Joe Z says, I can never live in Seattle. John Millender said 6.7. Christopher Alley 2. Steve LaPointe 6. Bobby Livingsworth 11. Norm Roberts 6. Every once in a while, this just jumps all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Garo Vestas 3.5. Sammy Presley 11.
Well, the answer, Joe, is 4.8.
Well, I said 4, so that's
Oh, you
close.
did good. Okay, so now the next one, the next to last one, Virginia Beach, which, in case you didn't know, is in Virginia, which is
Always get that
convenient.
confused. Always get that
As
confused with
opposed to
Norfolk.
I get it confused with West Virginia Beach, but that's
Not. No, I always get it confused with Norfolk. Virginia Beach. They theoretically, being so close to the water, you would expect them to get less than Washington, but then a coastal storm could dump on them and give them a lot, and Washington would get not as much. I don't know. I would say I'm going to stick with 4 for them.
okay. Well,
And Charlie Porch says 3. Leon Probitsky 2. Conroy Jet 2. Steve LaPointe is reminding people, folks, it's Washington, D.C. John Millender says 2.2. Jacob Mack Mindfulness says 1. Garo Vesta says 0.5. Keith James II 1.3. James Volpe 3.
oh,
Miss Spallerite 1.5. Was it James Volpe got it?
no, I just missed. Just missed. If you said 3.2 is the number. So if you said 3, you are you're good. You're very good. And last but not least, Joe, is Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City, Utah.
Well, they say in Utah it's the snow of the century or snow of the year or whatever on their license plate. Greatest snow on earth. So what would they get? I don't know, 16? I'd say 16 inches,
Okay.
which is what Mark G also said. And Leon Probitsky says 18. And Chuck Cardillo says 11. And Weather Nerd 735 says 20. John Millender says 18.4. Norm Roberts 11. Steve LaPointe 13. Ken Musillo 18. Jacob Mack Mindfulness 14. Wolves Racing 30. Conroy Jet 20. Joe Lopresti 8.5.
And the answer tonight, well, everybody's kind of wide ranging. 12.8. 12.8 is the answer for Salt Lake City. So, see, we learned something new every day. We got 100 likes, Joe, which is good. Didn't even have to ask for it, so we hit the 100. And
Yes.
the result of tonight's poll, which of the following best describes hell? The final, just about final results. Eternity in this pattern, 30%. Eternity folding clothes, which is what I have to do when we're done, 8%. Eternity in 33 degrees and rain, 42%, Joe. And where it's stood from the beginning, right around the 20% mark, enduring the Cars for Kids song, 20%. So anyway, I was just having a little, folding clothes and the Cards for Kids songs are my personal versions of hell. But if I had to pick from the other two, I would go with 33 and rain.
Yeah, 33 and rain could be very depressing.
Yeah, that's
just like there's one word for that kind of weather: indifferent.
Oh, yeah, no, it's 33 and rain. That's it. No, I'm not liking that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap it up for tonight. Thanks,
We will be back tomorrow.
Yes, you do. You do the close.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow, folks, and probably we'll be talking about basically the same thing that we talked about tonight, which is a seemingly unending pattern of wind, rain, severe weather, mudslides, you name it. They'll have it out west in California. And for us, kind of a pattern with maybe a bit of rain here Thursday night into part of Friday, but no sign, unless you want to believe the 18Z GFS, in the foreseeable future of any significant snow. Here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, we'll be back with you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Joe?
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.